Welcome to Thrive, the podcast. In today's episode, I'm speaking with Alex Harvey. Alex is the creator of Money Queen, a course designed especially to help and support women on their money creation journey. Alex created this from her own experience of being employed with a high level of income, only to blow it all when she started her own business. We know employment comes with sick leave and regular wages and basically a steady income in exchange for performing one role or two. So when we move from employment into business, the path comes without any financial security and often with many more roles to perform. The learning curve can be a steep one, and uniquely for women, especially in the West, it's only since the Second World War that many women have become the providers for their families. My own mother was a stay-at-home mum. She felt very powerless over my father, who she experienced as having all the control. As a result, the war in their union was always about money. She never really got to grips with money management. By default, I didn't get the memo either, so I've had to learn a lot the hard way. Given the financial stresses and pressures in the world today, and my own wounds around money, what it has signified and symbolized throughout my life, I'm grateful to be having this conversation with Alex about her hero's journey on the topic and the role intuition has played in supporting her to create a six-figure income in her own business. So Alex, welcome to the podcast. I'd love to hear about your experience with getting to the point where you offer and facilitate women around their money journey, as a lot of women experience. And what I didn't expect was, you can work and work to get the money. But then what you don't necessarily know is that once you got it, there's even more tension. There's even more decision to be made.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to sharing that. And and I think it's about the sense of feeling empowered to create whatever you need financially in your life and I've heard, I can't remember the name of the woman. There's a really good book called The Soul of Money. And she talks about coming into a state of sufficiency. So it's about that sufficiency and that resourcefulness and that empowerment of knowing that you have resources to generate what it is that you need and support the life that feels aligned to you.
Yeah, I think money is one of those places where it touches the deepest wound around powerful or powerless. I know in my own history and upbringing, that was an area for my mum she really grappled with. My dad controlled the finances. She was in a powerless position in relation to that. So when we're dealing with money, it's where everything shows up. Yeah.
Absolutely. And survival, it hits on our survival needs in a couple of ways. It hits on the survival need that, for our food and shelter, because money is now what represents us just having those basic needs in our lives. But it also plays a really big role in belonging, and one of our survival needs from our primitive selves is to belong in the tribe. Otherwise, if you get kicked out, you're going to get eaten by a lion. And money represents that, in terms of, can you keep up with the people around you? Can you, can you afford the experiences that they're having? And it totally ties into that belonging survival as well.
So when did you, I know from your story that you had this corporate career and you were really well remunerated. And so money probably at that point didn't seem like much of an issue to you. When did you first hit the wall with money?
Yeah, great question. So money, I'd worked from a pretty young age. I grew up on a farm and I'd always been taught to save. So I always had some money. I was never someone that had a zero bank account. And then when I went into my full-time job, as you said, I was well remunerated. And so I just, for my first year, actually, I just didn't think much of it. I just spent what was in my account. And I got to almost the end of that year, and I was completely shocked to realize that I was in no better financial position than I was at the start of the year. And that got brought to my attention because a financial planner came to town actually and did a session for women. So I went to this session, and that was a bit of a wake up for me of realizing, that I've just got no consciousness around my money. So I then actually set up a plan and all these automatic payments of how much I wanted to save into these different accounts for the next 12 months, which I did. And that enabled me to leave my job when I just felt like I absolutely needed to for my own sanity and well-being, and take some time out and discover what my true path was. And so for about the first, so I had about $40,000, I think, saved at that time. And that could have lasted me quite a long time. But my next kind of wake up was after about 6 months, realizing I was coming to the end of that money, and I hadn't changed any of my spending habits through that time. I was having my large lattes and getting massages. That was not something I did every day, but I did get massages, and I didn't change any of my spending habits. And what I realized is that I didn't know how to. And then I hit this crisis point where I'd spent through all of my savings. I didn't have a consistent income yet. And, I was completely terrified. I'd never in my life had no money. And that was my really big wake up call for, this is actually something that's really important to me, being able to live a life following my truth, doing the work that I love, sharing my gifts. It's actually all completely that's dependent on my relationship to money, and if I can make it work financially.
So were you starting businesses at that point, exploring different options? And also, was that contributing to some of the depletion in your finances at that time?
Yes, so I was taking courses, I was going on retreats, I took a course in somatic sexology, and I was investing in my growth. And I had for like maybe 4 or 5 months, maybe more like 4 months, I had started to work on a coaching business because that had just become uncovered as very true for me. And I'd had my first clients, but I didn't have a consistent income. I didn't have a structure in my business set up where I consistently connected with new people that would be interested in what I offered. I didn't even have a good way or feel very comfortable actually offering coaching to people. And so, yeah, at this time, it was like I was just trying to get started on things. And I just hadn't paid attention to the money side of things. And I just had this mindset, which I think actually a lot of people do in New Age spirituality, sort of start off with this mindset and then probably get crushed at some point, like it did for me, where I believed or I thought that if I just follow my truth, everything's just going to work out and I don't need to think about it. But what I didn't realize is if you have avoidance around an area, if you've got some shadows in an area, if you're just starting to work through all of the stuff that comes up in starting a business and you don't actually have a business structure, then yeah, you can't expect everything to magically work out if you're not paying attention to it and tending to it and doing what's needed for it.
So you talk a little bit about this on your own podcast, the money structure and the business structure. Would you like to share, what that is to you, how you discovered the business structure rather? Yeah.
The business structure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was an unfolding for me through my business journey of realizing really the fundamental components that you have to have in a business. Otherwise, your business is always going to be kind of random. So, a consistent way to be connecting with people that are interested in what you do, a way for them to get to know you and build a connection, and then what are your what's the journey that you take them on, what are your offers in that structure, and really understanding that it's not effective in a business to just have one product, or just have like three kind of random products, or just have a product that you sell once to someone, but then you've got nowhere for them to go after that. You've got no way to have an ongoing connection with them. So the business structures are just around what is your structure for each of those things, and for that level, and for then having an ongoing connection, and your highest level that you're serving your customers and clients.
So at some point you settled on the topic of money in coaching, that, you probably started trying out a couple of different ways that you might coach people, and then it dawned on you, money is my thing. What was that moment like?
Yeah, it just became obvious. So I started off just life coaching, and then my coaching became very sexuality focused because had been on a big journey of that myself. I did a lot of study on it. I felt very passionate about women knowing and learning what I had learned through that process, that I just couldn't believe is just not more talked about, or that I hadn't learned earlier. And then I actually took a break from coaching for, I would say, almost a year, less than a year, but almost a year. And that's sort of a whole nother story about kind of burning out on it and expectations and things like that. And then it very naturally unfolded, that that I was helping people with money, and I had built a money management system, and just people in my life I was helping so much with it, and then they were sharing that with other people in their lives and coming back and telling me how helpful that was. And it was just very obvious, that I had created something that was very helpful to people. So that's what got me started on money, and then money was my main focus for a few years, and then business became a very obvious part of that also, what I had to share around business, and my own passion for business. I've done just a lot of business training. And so my work has now more evolved into, helping people live their true nature and purpose, helping them know and uncover the truth of what they're about, what they're here for, what they want to create, and to learn the tools, and have a framework to powerfully be able to create that vision. And a big passion of mine in that, through these other building blocks, has been, helping people create the businesses that they love, that's in their heart, in their vision, and also, overcome the limitations they might be subject to in their relationship to money.
Yeah.
Because it's like, like I mentioned earlier, it's so key. I mean, I think it's really valuable and important for anyone, but particularly if you are going to have your own business, you can't ignore it anymore. If you're not going to have a regular paycheck,
Yeah.
you've got to actually face all your money stuff.
Yeah, I see that a lot of people's focus is on just getting the business up and running, so they haven't even thought about the money management side, and I've definitely been through that journey myself of going, okay, now that I have all this income, suddenly what I didn't expect was kind of freezing around it, to be honest. It's like it was an unusual response. I remember feeling very numb. feeling very almost nihilistic in my
Mm.
relationship to money. And yeah, and then to have to face that actually it's what you're creating is on you, you know, it's you're generating
Mm.
it. So what would you say was your most challenging moment? You know, was it when you discovered that you were at the end of your bank account, or would you say there were other key moments for you where, you know, you faced maybe something insurmountable that you didn't know if you would come back from?
Yeah, I think there's probably been a few of those, but one of them was definitely reaching the end of my savings, not having a full-fledged successful business yet, and expecting that I should have, and really feeling like I was failing and things weren't working. I think this is one of the biggest pitfalls actually for people in business, is to think they're failing and things aren't working when they are. It's just that their expectations have been out of whack. And that was absolutely the case for me. I did not need to go into full burnout and think that I was failing and, it's not going to work for me because I haven't, worked it out in this amount of time. It was just completely ridiculous. So yeah, that moment, and I just remember feeling so much fear
Mm,
and terror,
mm,
and just like, what am I going to do? I've never been in this position before. So that was definitely one of the most uncomfortable moments. And I remember thinking, I don't know, I don't know if I'm ever going to like know or create, know how or create being financially supported by doing what I love. But what I do know is no matter what, like this money thing is is one of the most important things for me to figure out in my life. And so I'm going to do that in the vulnerability that, I don't know if I'll ever actually create what I want. And so that was really my mentality at that point, was like, I just have to address this. This is just the most important thing for me to address. And it was around that time, or I guess maybe a bit after that, that I then just quit coaching for a bit. And other times, I guess, I mean, I feel like there's been a few. Again, probably where, I was having expectations that things should be at a certain level and they weren't going that way. And then just going into like full freak out and shame and, you know, all my stuff. Another one in particular that I remember though that stands out for me is COVID. And
wow.
at, at the start of, just a bit into COVID, at the start of COVID, I had coincidentally come back to South Australia and was staying in the country there, and everything was going into lockdown, and my clients that I had were, stopped, they had their incomes cut off. I was relying heavily on in-person stuff. So I was meant to be traveling back to Melbourne to continue doing in-person things, but all that got cut off. And that was another moment of feeling like I had no power. I didn't, I didn't have the ability to bring this together. And maybe I'm just gonna have to resign myself to figuring something else out for my life.
You raise a really good point. I remember that moment so well myself. My coaching was in full flow, you know, I was so kind of in the abundance of my business at that point. And the interesting thing about it is that this business kind of was born from really surrendering and relaxing. And there was this ease around it all for me, which is so different from the oscillation that happens when we don't know about receiving and surrender, right? We do this cycle of work really hard, push, 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 or totally give up. It's that kind of swing on the pendulum. So, you know, I'm in this relaxed kind of lovely abundance
Mm.
space, and then COVID comes in, and it goes straight to some of the deepest fear conditioning I was given in my childhood. So just to give you a bit of background there, I was told that Armageddon was coming and everybody was going to be killed. And, so for me, this went straight to that. And I remember waking up, 2, 3 in the morning, sweating, having nightmares around the whole thing. And then slowly from it, from the COVID impact, clients going, I can't really continue. This is going on, and thinking, I'm never going to be back from this.
Mm.
Really relate. And I think a lot of people, the whole world went through that at the same time. It's a very intense collective force field. Yeah.
It was very intense.
Yeah. So how was that in terms of you realigning for your business, and what did you do in the interim period?
Yeah, so initially, everyone was going crazy online, all talking about pivoting, you got to pivot, got to do this. And to me, that just sent me into anxiety. Like, it's like everyone's scrambling. What it felt like to me was everyone was scrambling to try to, make their businesses work and make money and have people in their things and offer solutions to the fact that we were in COVID. And it just felt like that would just be completely forcing a fear response for me, and it wasn't going to work. So I decided to just let go and just let it go and not need to do anything. And so I actually went off social media for 6 months, and I just let go, and I let myself consider other options, and then I just let everything fall to the ground, and it was from there that things just started to flow. Like I was off social media, and I started to have some consistent one-to-one clients sign up with me, and and I was really focusing then on living your true nature and purpose and what you're really about, and getting to the heart of that. And then I had this inspiration for a membership that I had been wanting to do, and I had been asked to do it by someone for a while, and it just hadn't clicked yet. And it was to do sex magic rituals and combine it with, money and your personal power and your career.
Yeah.
And so I started that membership, and I just let myself do whatever I wanted without trying to make a business work, without like, oh, I need to make it about money. I need to make it about this. It needs to go this way, and like, strangling it. And I just, let it, keep unfolding, and I let myself do whatever I wanted to do. And then I came out with, I created a new money course, like an updated money course from my old one. And I had 65 people join that money course, which was way more than I'd had before in a course. And, I just kept being in my heart, being in my truth, and letting go of the way things needed to be, my fears, like letting go of putting pressure on my business. That was a really big thing. And I was able to do that in the situation that I created for myself in South Australia, which, in Melbourne, I had a lot of pressure on my business, to pay my bills. And, and I just let it unfold. And I kept going back to having a consistent income source that would cover my bases outside of it if I needed it, and I remember this one time where I was like, yeah, I actually think I can fully cut that off now, like this is my income for the next few months. And and then a couple of months later, I was like, okay, things actually haven't picked up quite as much as I would like, and I don't want to put myself under any of this pressure. So I'm just gonna like pick up some extra income again. And so that's what I did. And just keeping on going into that vulnerability and doing what needed to be done for my vision and my heart, and letting go of how that needed to be done or the expectations. And it just kept unfolding from there. And very quickly was much stronger and earning a lot more than I ever was before COVID.
Mm. Can you speak a little bit about the difference between, there can be the oscillation where we try harder, and then give up, to the distinction around simply surrendering and allowing?
Yeah. So what I find with the oscillation for me is that there's somewhere I need to get to, like I need to get here. And it feels like I need to get there, and I'm not okay where I am now. And I'm trying to resolve my sense of insecurity, maybe financial insecurity, or significance or success. And that's what's driving me. And so when I'm in that, there's a sense of this needs to happen and I need to make it happen. And when it needs to happen and I need to make it happen, I need to figure out how. And I get, and I'm super stuck in my head, trying to figure out how and make it happen. And so I'm completely not receptive to ideas, to inspiration, to anything from, my higher self, super conscious. And so being transitioning into that surrendered state was not needing my business to be anything for me, or to look a certain way, or fulfill certain conditions in order to be okay. Like I did, of course, have a vision, and there's what I would love, but I didn't need it to be that way to be okay. And I didn't need to know how, and I didn't need to know when. And that's what enabled me to be in the surrendered state, and let it flow. And it is really vulnerable to be in that state, because you don't know.
It's
You
also,
don't know.
it's quite profound though as well to choose that, because
Yeah.
the tide, the collective tide in society is all around working hard, push,
Mhm.
workaholism. I mean, workaholism is a massive thing that most people never look into, because it's noble. It's so noble to
Mm.
work hard. And if you're not working hard, I mean, I went through this as well, feeling really guilty at certain points that I wasn't really working hard, and I was having these great results, but without all the effort, because my prior life was all about hard work, effort, stress, push the whole way through. So it's quite a thing to realize that there's a distinction in a way of being in relationship with your business, and then the impact that can have on your money. And my question would be, because I've noticed that our sexual energy plays into that, not with people. I'm not talking about
Mm.
sexual energy that we put on other people, yeah, but just being able to harness that as a woman, especially within ourselves. Is there anything you'd love to share around that? Because I know you've been on the journey.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I do think it's particularly powerful for women, in part because it's another area there's so much disempowerment, there's so much suppression of the energy, and it's so taboo. And our sexual energy, in Tantra, they literally call it your life force energy. It's your life force, it's your creativity. And I mean, you can create without it, but to tap into your sexual energy, it effortlessly puts you in your power and your creativity, and connects you with your genius. So that's what I really see the power with it. And you're radiant, like your inherent natural radiance and magnetism, So I find it a very powerful thing to work with.
Beautiful. Yeah. So would you let people know, what's the best way? I mean, I'll put your link in the comments, but you have the whole
Mhm.
thing on Money Queen. I think is it 6 weeks or 10 weeks?
6 weeks, yeah.
6 weeks. Yeah. So, and do you want to just speak a little bit about how you enroll for that?
Yeah, so I now have Money Queen set up. I professionally recorded it so that people can take it at any time. I used to run it once a year live, but then that's a lot of the year that people don't have access to it. So you can now, enroll to do it self-paced on demand. So all you need to do is go to my website, go to in the navigation bar, you'll find the Money Queen link. Click on that, and then you can read through the information, read through some other people's experiences, and enroll, and you'll get immediate access to the course and be able to take that program. And I think I'll still be running it periodically live. I don't have the next dates in mind because I've got a couple of other projects first. But yeah, it's a very powerful course. I highly recommend it.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for joining me and coming on to this conversation. I look forward to our next conversation. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Liz.
It's through relationships that we receive the most powerful mirror of our relationship to ourselves and life. So if you're experiencing disconnection, conflict, discord, or oscillation in your relationships and are ready to address this now so that you can go on to thrive, join me in my 6-week live immersion, Thrive in Relationships, where you'll get out of the cycle of fixing issues and experience creating relationships from a place you love. Visit mavericksmaker.com for the enrollment link, and this is in the show notes. If it's your relationship with money that you're looking to transform, connect with Alex. Her link is also in the show notes. If you loved this episode, please share it and subscribe to the podcast to get notified of the next episode. Thank you for listening.